everybody. Happy Wednesday night and welcome to Triversity Talk. I am Wendy Stewart.
And I am Simone Krause.
And we are very happy to have you with us tonight. As a matter of fact, we are especially blessed because we had one of those technical difficulty nights, didn't we, Simone?
Yes, we did. I was talking about the Supreme Court, interviewing the Supreme Court nominee and Ted Cruz, and I said something nasty about him, and my internet and Wi-Fi and everything went down, and it only came on 5 minutes ago. So,
oh my gosh! Well, you know what? Then we'll keep our thoughts to ourselves. Although, as we were saying before the show started, it was a pretty outrageous grilling that they did to her.
Yes, they did.
Right. Absolutely. How, other than that, Simone, and with your internet going down, how was your week? Did you do anything exciting this week?
The week, just a normal week of doing advocacy stuff for trans community. That's it.
And you know what? That's the most important thing in the world that you absolutely can be doing. Now, there was one of the states that actually voted for a trans athlete this week.
Well, I do know, like I said, Texas has stuff. Indiana, they went for it, and the governor decided to turn that one down. But it's kind of really weak because it can get overturned by the Republican majority in there.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. So, when we think it's positive and good, and they're going to support a trans athlete, you're saying that it's like close but no cigar. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not. I mean, even the governor of Utah said, we have 75,000 school-age children. We have 4 trans athletes, and we're spending this much time setting bills for 4.
Right.
And it's really just gotten out of hand. But the visibility needs to be there. So all these kids that are in school, and especially with the books being banned, to see the visibility that we're out there. I know so many trans women out there that are just living their lives, but not hiding.
Exactly.
Whether they're working in Walmart, whether they're working up at West Point at the museum there. That's what it's all about. And
well,
our
at
guests
the end of the day, people should just be allowed to live their lives, hands down. And I completely agree with you. However, even in our own school district in Milford, Pennsylvania, a lot of these issues are raising their ugly head. And that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2022. But all of that aside, we have an amazing guest tonight. Our guest tonight is a social and economic activist with a unique understanding of the marginalized community and a passion to be a voice for the voiceless. I'd like you all to meet Daniella Mendez. Daniella, welcome to our show.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with y'all.
Well, you're here with welcome arms, right? And read your bio, my gosh, it's just like you're so involved and you're making such a difference in every single day of your life. And I just need to know, and we talked a little about this before we went on air, where the heck does this come from that makes you care so much and want to make a difference so much? What goes on in your head and your heart?
The things that go on in my head and my heart are so complex, but I'll try to put them into words. Advocacy started for me at a really young age, without me even knowing it, right? And it wasn't necessarily because, when I was young, I didn't even know that that trans was a thing, right? I didn't know that gay was a thing. But within my family dynamic, there were situations that arise. For example, my mother, who is now in long-term recovery and has been for over 20 years at this point, but she was struggling with an addiction to substances. And there were times as a young child, I would have to, advocate for her. And I would just always tended to be a great listener, even as a child. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just to listen to someone, and that makes a huge difference. So that's kind of how I got started from a young age, just within my family, just being a great listener. And
well, and a caregiver, it sounds like,
yeah,
dealing with substance abuse as a young child, I'm sure you often found yourself in the position of being the mother of your mother.
Yeah, and always having to chase her down to see where she is, and when she would go to treatment, having to make time to go there to visit her on visitation days, like things that as a child, those are not things that you hope to be doing, but that's kind of what my childhood was like. And then my dad was addicted to fast money and chasing women, so he wasn't around. So I grew up with my grandmother, who her first language is not English, and she was, already older and had raised all her children. So she did the best she could to provide, shelter and food on the table.
Some stability for you.
Yeah, but I was alone in navigating life socially, and navigating life, like my gender journey and everything else, like those things I had to figure out alone on my own. So
I'd like to talk about that in relationship to this, right? Because we talk a lot with people about their gender journey, and it's a heck of a lot easier when you have two parents that are completely behind you, right? And encouraging you to be the gender who you really are, right? So what was it like for you?
So, when I think about it in retrospect, I began my gender journey like probably at 3 and 4 years old, when I discovered Barbie dolls, right? And heels, and dressing up in my grandma's and my mother's heels and clothes. But I didn't know that trans was a thing or existed until probably 15, 16, when I got my first fake ID and went to the first club that I ever went to in New York City called Escuelita.
I know Escuelita really well.
Yeah. And I seen, so at 2 a.m., everyone would sit down on the dance floor, and then these beautiful women would come out onto the stage. And I was like, oh my gosh. And, and so through meeting them, I obviously discovered that they were trans women. And that's kind of how my physical gender journey started. So
Right. I love, by the way, that those women were your influence. I knew a lot of the women that work there, absolutely beautiful. And that's a very, that's a really positive story. And also for you, I'm assuming you're in your teen years when you did that, right? You had your fake ID, you could get in there. Those were probably the only influences you really had at that point. You were a high school kid.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when I say that's how like my gender journey actually like physically began. It was when I met them, right? Because then they kind of took me under their wing. And I took my first hormone shot, and it just like went from there. Yeah.
So you were actually a teenager when you got your first hormone pill and your first hormone shot, and probably not under the care of a doctor, right?
No, as most, I wouldn't say most, that's probably the wrong word to use, but I was an eager teen, and I wanted to see change fast. And they were like, one of the trans girls that took me under her wing, she was like, hey, I have this pill. Hey, I have this shot that she was getting from her doctor, and, injected and gave to me, which in retrospect was probably not the best way to go about it. But at the time, that was my only option, right? My only outlet.
Well,
so
we talk about that a lot, certainly in the Milford area. I had an amazing friend who was part of Triversity, but she was getting hormones that didn't have anything to do with the hormones, and you all know this, it's very individual, right? I take bioidentical hormones. I have to have blood work done 4 times a year, and then the estrogen and the trieste and the progesterone and the testosterone, they all have to be measured out. And when you're seeing a legitimate doctor, and this is a really big point, it is measured out for your body chemistry. Often, like what you're talking about, teens don't have anywhere to go. And you were lucky they took you under their wing, but you're right. You're using somebody else's hormones. My God.
Yeah, all those things, as a disclaimer, are best done under the care of a doctor, right. Of course. But like you said, yeah, as a teen, I had no outlet, and I want to say at the time, Google really wasn't a thing. So yeah, that was my way in. That was my only option, and then from there, then I was like, oh my God, I want these. I need a more of a feminine body. The hormones aren't doing it for me, right? And I met a trans girl who was like, well, I have this substance called silicone. It's medical grade, of course, and we can put it in you and give you that feminine body you want. So I jumped on that, of course.
So you jumped on. So wow, this discussion is a very important one that I'm having with you, because I have had somebody on here that we talked about how terrible silicone was, and for this person, and you're really bringing up some good points here. If things are not put in place, right? We have, what is great about now, you've got more and more 3 and 4 year olds, right, that are dressing in the gender that they know they are. Okay. Not the biological marker, but the gender that they know that they are. Mm-hmm. And you've got parents that are at least supporting that. So there's a system set up. And when they're ready, they'll get the right hormones. But it's a whole different thing, right? Than when you're renegade. You don't have any of that. Yeah. Someone tells you about silicone and, oh yeah, I'll inject that into my body. Wow. Yeah, Simone.
Well, because the thing is, once, we're teenagers. I mean, I was a teenager the early 70s. So there was nothing around, but I did know about hormones then from what I read about. And I did know if I could get into the city, that's where they could be found.
Right.
And I totally relate with Daniella that you're so impulsive then because you want it. You want to stop the male that is starting to show in your body. You want to stop that and have the female. So I totally sympathize. I would have done exactly the same thing if I could have found a way into the city, without a doubt.
And that's why the work that Simone does, Wendy, like the work that we're all doing, in our own corners of the world is so important, because we are educating and helping to get policies and helping, connect young trans women to insurance and services that, so they don't have to take the underground or the black market route, right? We're showing them that there are other options.
Right. You had no choice. And because of people like you, okay, you're creating a situation for other people that can take a very legitimate and safe for their health path.
Yeah.
Huge. That's absolutely huge. So I'm curious, have you, Wendy's pipe dream that I would have a speakers bureau where I have Simone and I have you, and you go into high schools and tell your story. And I don't think in the Northeast here even that they're ready for that yet. I'm sure there's schools in the city that probably are. And the reason your story is so important, you can share from the heart and lay a groundwork for those kids to know it's okay. It's totally okay. Look at this beautiful person that's standing in front of me. They're totally together. They've gone on to get an education. They've gone on to advocate. It's the best influence in the world. And to me, that's something certainly that's very needed. I know Simone lives in Verdun, and I'm in New York City, but our organization Triversity is based in Milford, Pennsylvania. And again, when I see what is put on these Facebook groups in relationship to our high school, I just can't believe it. And I tell my New York City friends that, and they're like, oh, come on, Wendy, you're exaggerating. I have a lot of friends here that have transitioned. They cannot even wrap their heads around the fact that, some of the things that some of these parents would say. They're afraid of the kids, like with the books. if they read about trans, they can catch it from reading about it. It's going to influence them. They're going to read a book about a kid that transitioned, and then they're going to want to transition too. I mean, this is nutty stuff. So both the parents and the kids really need the education.
I agree. And one of the things, I seen a meme the other day, and it was from a teacher in Chicago, and he said, it was verbatim, I don't know, but it said something along the lines of prioritize queer and trans kids and not the comfort of adults. So the kids, the youth they're open-minded, right? They're a whole different generation, and they're totally willing to learn and accept their peers as equals and accept each other's differences. It's when the adults interject their beliefs that the issues arise. Because one thing that I always say is, and this is not, I didn't make this up, but I just like to repeat it, hate, you're not born hating. Children aren't born hating. That's a taught behavior. That's taught.
Right.
So going back to your point, Wendy, is yes, not only do we need to get into these schools and speak and tell our stories to the children, but we also have to educate the adults, because a lot of the times in these rural areas, they are the ones who are, I'm going to use the word poisoning. They're the ones who are poisoning the children's mind, to be quite honest with you. So.
Exactly. I mean, we really need to stand up for the kids, but educate the adults. I mean, they talk about the blockers. Well, guess what? That blocker's been around for years for a young girl that was assigned female at birth that all of a sudden started having signs of puberty when she's 5 or 6. They would give her that pill to stop it so she could have a puberty later on when everyone else does. It
was a normal time to have it, right?
Exactly. We have to protect these trans kids, because both Danielle and I, we know what it's like to suffer through our teen years. I don't want to see anyone go through that. Danielle she was blessed that she got to transition so much younger than I did. I hid it for 40 years. I don't want people to have to be tortured like that. We need to be there for the kids.
And it's interesting because with the two of you, it's two vastly different backgrounds. Most of the people I knew, Daniella, growing up in New York, were like you. They started going to Escalita. It wasn't a biggie in New York. You were just going to go ahead and do it. And then I go to Milford on the weekends, and, we formed this organization, Triversity, 10 years ago, and we put together a trans group. And what was unbelievable to me was I was meeting people. I never knew people over 50 that had spent their entire lives, right, not living their truth. Imagine, you build one world. I call it the house with the white picket fence, and often 2 teenage kids and a job, and often a blue collar job. All right. It's a hell of a lot harder at that point because you are rocking your world. And Simone, you can speak on that better than anybody.
Yeah. 40 years as a construction worker. Got into the trades the day Elvis died. And then I transitioned once I got out. But yes. And so I've seen that level of people and the hate that's there. But so Danielle, what other, as I know you work for the One Center.
So, okay. Right now, currently, I'll read off the list. I am the Senior Peer Services Coordinator for Prevention is Key Cares. We basically are a nonprofit that a part of our mission is to engage, educate, and offer peer support to the recovery community. And a part of my mission with the agency is to offer that same support to LGBTQ folk. Unfortunately, in New Jersey, there are not a lot of recovery services for LGBTQ folk at all.
I'm totally shocked to hear that. See, I didn't know that. Why do you think that is?
That is a great question that I'm still trying to find the answer to.
Huge community, huge,
Yeah, and when you think about like LGBT culture and like hookup culture and which is big within our community, right? and sex work, right? Drugs, substances are synonymous with that. So you would think there would be more support for our community, but there isn't. So that's a part of my mission now with the agency, to kind of like bring that to fruition. So I'm working on that. I am also the newest cabinet member of Emerge New Jersey. As a cabinet member of Emerge New Jersey, a part of our mission is to recruit, train, and provide a powerful network for a diverse group of women, right, to get elected, specifically trans and LGBTQ identifying women. I am on the community garden advisory committee to the mayor of Dover.
I know. I read that. That's so. Wait, so we're going to get a little light here. Tell me what you do on the garden committee. I love this.
So right now we're out of season. We're just about to start meeting again to get it, to bring it to life. So the municipality gave the garden committee a plot of land, and a part of our mission as the garden committee is to come up with ways to bring the garden to life, a self-sustaining garden, organic garden, and then use the quote unquote fruits of that labor to then give back to our community, right? To feed them and give them produce free of charge. So that's kind of what we want to do. We only have 5 beds right now, so it's still a work in progress, but hopefully within the next year or two, it'll be big enough to feed a good portion of our community.
I think that's such an amazing idea, and to involve the community as well. Yeah. I want to jump back a little bit. You went to Passaic Community College.
I did. I went to Passaic County Community College, and I studied social work, human services with this specialty in mental health. And one of my proudest moments in college was becoming president of the Genders and Sexualities Alliance, or Gay Straight Alliance. It's, they're synonymous. They're kind of one and the same. And as president, I helped create a safe space at the college for LGBTQ folk to gather and bond and just create community. And we also, working together with the administration, brought safe spaces. This is back when safe spaces still weren't really that popular. They weren't a thing, to the campus, right? So the teachers and administration, you have a sticker on your door saying this is a safe space for LGBTQ folk. So that's one of the initiatives that I'm proud of from my college experience.
Oh my God, you certainly should be. It's incredible to me, like your whole history, right? Really has been just trying to make it better, make it right, using your smarts to do that too. What do you think it drives you? I mean, obviously you're not afraid of the opposition trying to shoot you down. You're just going for it. What do you think is in you, Daniella, that makes you do that?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I know that I have a great heart, right? I'd like to think that I have a great heart. And I genuinely care about humans. And I genuinely want the best for our community in particular. And, my care for humans started at a really young age. Like I told y'all before, like just caring for my family and when I shouldn't have had to have been so thoughtful and caring at that age, right? That is, I think, what drives me is my genuine love and care for the human race, quite honestly.
Did you get that from your grandmother?
Yeah, good. That was good.
That is probably where it came from, to be quite honest, because my grandmother was the person who, whenever she cooked large amounts of food and big
everybody
for everyone. You could just walk in and she'd offer you a plate of food, right? And she never complained. All the kids in our family, whenever there was an issue or someone wanted to go out, she was like, the kids would get dropped off with grandma, right? And she never complained. never.
Yeah, I wish we all could be like your grandmother, because I know my wife Mary had a grandmother just like yours, and she would
Really?
not be the woman she is unless that woman was in her life and guided her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that is a dying breed and generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you brought up your background, Puerto Rican.
So my mom is Italian.
Okay.
I call her an Olive Garden Italian.
I love that. That's great.
My dad is Puerto Rican. Yeah.
Okay. So the grandma was on mom's side or dad's side?
Dad's side. So she's my abuelita.
Abuela. She's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that so I bring that up. I have a lot of Latino friends. Even now, the grandmother and the glue that holds the family together. It's I didn't have that at all growing up. Russian on my dad's side, WASP on my mother's side, and the grandparents were just not around, or they passed, you know. And my friends from the kind of background you came up with, it makes an amazing difference in a child's life, you know. Grandma being there, holding the family together, the kids always being dropped off there. I mean, we talked earlier, I knew you had to have some kind of stabilizing factor, because if your dad is gambling and chasing women and your mom's dealing with addiction, what the hell? You are a little kid playing with your Barbie and just doing the best you can. And God bless that your grandmother was there.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I probably, thinking about it now, I don't think I'd be here without her, right?
Right.
I could have went down so many other paths.
Or rabbit holes, as we call them.
Right? So many other rabbit holes. Yeah,
right.
For sure. And like, I can think of times where I would come home from school and I might not have had the best experience, right? Someone said something derogatory or some sort of bullying took place, and the love that she would show me, although she might not have expressed it in words or know how to deal with it per se, right? There was still just an aura of love in the house that was so healing, right? Whether it was coming home from a bad day of school and just having that warm plate of food and just her like loving spirit, like that was so healing.
Unconditional love, you know, is to really have that. Did your grandmother, was she aware that you wanted to transition? Was she aware of what you were going through as a child?
So funny enough, my grandmother is actually the first person that I told. As most mothers and parents, she said she knew. So I first came out as gay, right? As I think that is a lot of people's journey sometimes. Because I didn't know what trans was, like I said, until I went to my first gay club. But and when I put on, my first wig and my first pair of heels and started going out more under a feminine expression, I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. This is what it is. Yeah.
Right,
So my grandma was the first person I told, and she was like, I knew, I was just waiting for you to tell me. So yeah, unconditional love. And I realized that my story is unique in the sense that a lot of trans women, specifically trans women of color, right? They don't have that support always. And coming from a low income environment, a lot of the times, not having the family support.
Right.
So I realized my privilege. Although, right, I didn't have necessarily my mother and father in my life, I still had a loving support system. Yeah. And even my mother and father now to this day, like when I did tell them, they had no issues. They accept all my decisions and who I am, no matter what. And I appreciate that. So yeah, I realized my journey is unique. I had a stable, loving home. I got an education, right? I've never had an issue finding a job. So I realized that my journey is unique, and I understand my privilege.
That's really beautifully put. Really, really beautifully put. We had Simone knows this person, this amazing, wonderful woman, Kim, on the show, who also came from, she's of color, and she came from a very loving home. And it made all the world of difference in her life. I think I stress this because any parents that are out there that are going through a negative thing over their kids, and by the way, I meet less and less of them. You know, maybe somewhere in the Ozarks there are parents flipping out, but I meet more and more supportive parents, and they make the journey wonderful for their kids, as they should. Parents love their children. As your grandmother loves you, she made your journey a lot easier. And I know you understand that. That's great.
Well, the thing is, for most people, and this is for anyone out there that's watching, when someone comes out to you, we're all happy and excited. Oh, the 500-pound gorilla is out in the room now. We're happy. We're dancing. This is great. Everyone else has to grieve the loss of who we were. And it takes us a while to realize that we need to give them that space. So if someone comes out to you, you're going to feel that. Go through the grieving process. You'll get through the other side. And that other person now who came out to you is happier. They're going to live a good life. And the only thing that's changed is their wrapping. They're still inside the same person to their core.
Yeah.
Just their wrapping's different. So just.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Simone. So one of the things in my interactions with non-binary and trans youth specifically, that's one of the things that I tell them, right? I say to them, you know, you're transitioning or you know what your gender journey is now, and just allow the people in your life that you love to go through that transition also, right? You have to give them time to transition to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I tell them, you know, then the response to me is like, yeah, but I hate, you know, when they mess up my pronouns. And I'm like, it's like training a dog. Every time they mess up, correct them, and eventually they'll get it.
Right. Keep saying it, and eventually they'll get it.
Yeah,
it was good. I got to remember that one.
Right. Dog training.
So what are some of the things that you do for the LGBT youth, especially trans youth, to kind of like empower them? Because I saw you were doing a self-defense thing on Facebook.
Wow. Right. So this Saturday, we are having a self-defense seminar that was designed specifically for LGBTQ folks to you know, learn some sort of self-defense. But beyond that, so I don't think we've mentioned this yet. When I was reading off my resume, sorry, my phone just keeps going off. Jesus. So this past November, 2021, I became the first openly trans woman elected in New Jersey, and to the Dover Board of Education.
Right. And I saw that, and I love that. Wait, I was like, yes, that's so great.
Thank you. And since then, what I've been doing, so luckily we live in a state, right? So New Jersey has protections for trans folks, has protections for LGBTQ folk. Thank the Lord that we have that, right? But so what I found coming into the Dover Board of Education, and I won't get into anything specific, but so we had a policy in place, a trans policy in place, but it was just a shell. So it was just there because it was mandated by the state, but it wasn't necessarily put into action.
Right. Nobody was doing anything with it.
Exactly. So part of the work that I'm doing now is you know, making it a living document, so to speak, right? And putting it into action. So we're having meetings, you know, with administrators and counselors and whatnot to get a GSA club up and running in each one of the schools. We have 5 schools in our school district. To get a GSA club running in each one of the schools, we're bringing in Edge New Jersey to do training. So we've done separate trainings. We've done for the students, we're doing for the parents, and we're doing for the staff.
Question on that. So how is that being received?
Luckily, so Dover is so special. We, first of all, are the only Democratic municipality within Morris County, right? So Morris County is heavily Republican and conservative.
Yes, it is. Right.
But luckily enough, Dover is like unique that we are totally progressive and liberal for the most part.
And you're not getting like a lot of pushback then from the
No,
parents.
there's not a lot of pushback, thankfully. I mean, so to put a pause on what I'm doing for the youth, throughout my campaign, the Dover community was super loving and welcoming and supportive, right? And those are the people who voted me into the office overwhelmingly. But it was the surrounding municipalities and counties that were giving me all the hate. So like if you go on like the Bergen Record and like all these other online outlets and you go into the comment section, they were saying the most derogatory things.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrific things. He, she, and everything else. But Dover specifically is a community that is like rooted in love, and we appreciate and accept our differences and diversity, which is amazing. So with bringing Edge New Jersey in, everyone's receptive and everyone's willing to learn, and that is a great thing. I think that. So when I say that it was just a shell, so it was mandated back in, I want to say 2019, the policy was mandated and nothing happened. It's not because they weren't open to it. They just didn't have that push or they didn't know how, right? Which is why me coming onto the board and me becoming a prominent figure within Dover, political figure, I've been able to give them that push and connect them to help to connect them to different resources to make this stuff happen. And I'm so proud. So not only did we do staff, students, and parents, but now I introduced a motion about a month or so ago, and it was approved unanimously. And Edge New Jersey will be coming to do a live training during a regular session meeting for the Board of Education. How amazing is that?
Made that happen. That's amazing. Yeah. Really amazing.
That is amazing. So I'm so excited about that. That's happening March 29th. What else? I mean, what else am I doing? I'm doing so much.
They need to be writing you up everywhere. I'll tell you why. You read Simone's wife, Mary, aggregates all these incredible articles for our Triversity site about what is going on for people that are trans, for LG, every letter person. And, a lot of the news that you hear about trans, right, especially in the world we're in now, it's so negative.
Yeah.
And it blows me away because it shouldn't be that way. Like what I'm hearing from you should be happening everywhere. Okay. It's progressive, it's equality, it's humanitarian. And I personally feel the amount of people that are trans nowadays, I don't believe that 25 years ago, maybe like Simone has said, there were people that weren't living the life that they should have been living. But I do believe with the population is growing. And the more people like you make it okay and make it safe, the more that are going to come out and feel all right. Right. It's definitely a huge thing. And to me, I would like to see even in our government now, much more in this area. Rachel Levine getting nominated, that was a biggie. You can't imagine some of the horrific things again in Pike County that have been written on her that I've seen on some of these groups. You can't imagine people could be so backward or so hateful, right? And when I read that, and then I talk to somebody like you, I'm like, we need 50 more ambassadors, just out there, educated, positive, great stories to tell.
Yeah. And I think a part of the problem is with media specifically is that, right, sometimes the feel good stories are not necessarily like the fun ones. People don't pay as much attention to them, and media is unfortunately a business, so they tend to write up and film and do stories on things so they can sensationalize them. But I agree that we do need to highlight the great things that trans women are doing, as opposed to, which is also important to talk about, right? The murders and the deaths, like that's important too.
You absolutely have to. You don't sweep it under the rug, right?
Yeah, there needs to be a balance. As with anything in life, it's all about balance, and there needs to be more positive representation and stories out there, for sure. Okay. And they're out there, right? I'm not the only one.
Hello, they're totally out there. Bianca Lee, who I had on, I do a Wednesday show, If These Walls Could Talk. It's an entertainment show. She's an actress. I've known her for forever, and she's getting tons of roles now. And when I knew her years ago, I said to a friend of mine, he had put her in a play, and I'm like, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, honestly. And my friend said to me, well, she's trans. And I said, well, what has that got to do with anything? But that's my head. And this is what my friend said to me, was a wonderful person in our community. My friend said to me, Wendy, when she goes up for a role and they find out she's trans, she doesn't get the role. Now I'm going back 20 years, right? So her working so much now for me, and a lot of it, the groundwork was laid by shows like Orange is the New Black, Laverne Cox, she became the poster girl. All right. But to me, there should have been 150 others. Why the hell did we have to wait so freaking long? And one of the things that Bianca said that still sticks in my mind, she says, I guess, we'll know we've made strides when they hire me to play the mother of a teenage boy. As the mother of a teenage boy. So not the role written for the trans girl, the role written, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have not evolved to that yet.
No.
We have not evolved to that yet.
I mean, we're still sometimes hiring cis people to play trans roles. So that's problematic within itself. But things are getting better. But yeah, we need to evolve to the point where trans women are able to just play a character that is not written as trans, right?
A character. Trans women are playing a character like any actor or actress plays a character. And let's just, call it a day at that, Lord knows I want to see that. It's so much. I want to talk about your beauty pageant.
Oh, Miss Gay New Jersey.
Yes, I love beauty pageant stories. So tell us about that.
So it's funny because that's kind of how I transitioned into politics. So taking it all the way back to Escuelita.
Yeah.
Eventually, one of the things that came into my mind when I first remember when my jaw dropped and I was like, I said, I want to be up there one day. Fast forward a few years after that, and I was hired to be a part of the cast at Escuelita.
Oh my God, that's great. I love it.
And that's kind of how my entertainment career was started, which then if you fast forward past being on Botch and being on MTV True Life, I competed in 2016 for Miss Gay New Jersey. And I won. And
yay.
yeah, that was super exciting. And it was amazing. I got to travel up and down the state and meeting all types of folks and performing. And I like to think that through my art, my art was healing, right? So people usually, they went out and to see a show and through my art, they were able to forget about the things going on within their life for even just a moment, and then from there, so Miss Gay New Jersey is a spokesperson for the Beacon Light Fund, which is a nonprofit that assists those living with HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, I was reading about that.
Yeah.
That's how you got involved with Beacon Light. Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So once my reign as Miss Gay New Jersey was up in 2017, I was voted on and appointed to the board of the Beacon Light Fund, where then I spent the next however long advocating for folks who are living with HIV and AIDS and raising funds. We do small small assistance, like, you know, to help pay with rent, bills,
Oh my
whatever.
God, these are things people need to live. And here you are with everything you've done, and you're working with people that have HIV or AIDS, which I'm glad you brought that up. I was reading about your advocacy work with that, and too many people don't realize that that is still going on. No, it's not over, especially with people that don't have, let's just say, the education or the access, financial access to the medications that can be life-changing, life-saving. We know that not everybody's getting that, that blows my mind. To me, everybody should have everything.
I agree. And one of the exciting things that I can tell you is that through our nonprofit, Preventionist He Cares, we're working on a harm reduction grant where we're hoping, well, we've written into it where as a part of harm reduction, we're able to provide PEP and PrEP. So that's super exciting. And I will tell you that I had my own HIV scare, right? And this is even after all of my advocacy and everything else. For folks with HIV and AIDS, where I was exposed. I had an exposure, and I went to the hospital, and they give you like a few day supply until you can get to a pharmacy and fill a full script of the post exposure prophylaxis. I think I said that right.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a tongue twister too. You were
and you know, the pharmacy was giving me such a hard time because, well, I shouldn't say the pharmacy, but the insurance company was giving me such a hard time to cover it. And I'm like, do you realize that this is a matter of
life-saving?
Yeah. Like we can't play games, you know, and I had to, thankfully, you know, I knew how to advocate for myself and place a million phone calls to make it happen. But think about the folks that don't have access to that information or can't advocate for themselves because maybe they don't have a phone, maybe they don't have internet access, maybe they can't drive to the pharmacy, you know?
Maybe it's all of the above. And what the heck are they supposed to do? This should be easily accessible to people.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And in the long run will prevent people from getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I finally, you know, got the meds that I needed, and I am still HIV negative. Not that there's anything wrong with being positive, but I'm HIV negative. But that was my experience with it, and that was like such a wake up call for me. Like, oh my God, the insurance system or the medical system in America, period, effing sucks. Yeah. It's horrible. It's like profits over people. It's money over people, and that is not the way it should be at all.
Right, and we're all on the same page with that. However, you know, when the elections were going on, or I'll go to the last administration, I'll phrase it like that. I was on Obamacare. I'm self-employed. I'm a performer. And I had Obamacare. Thank God. And it wasn't some garbage insurance either. The doctors were real and everything. And I remember when that came up to question, when a certain president was going to, you know, get rid. I don't know if you all remember this. Simone, you were in a union. You were covered. You had insurance. But I was one of those people, right? My whole life I had to fight for my insurance. Finally have this Obamacare. And then it became up for grabs under that 4-year administration. And that is something that I will never let go and never forget about. And, you know, I tell people, I don't care which side of the fence you're on, but the fact that you could say you want that person to be running next time for a presidential candidate day, don't you realize what he attempted to do? Does everybody forget? He was going to try and get rid of it. All right. You know how many people were on Obamacare? Try every single performer that I know. Thank God we had that. And it's for all the reasons. And you're saying even with insurance, right? You go there and they're giving you a hard time for a drug that you need as life-saving. So it's up to all of us to be as verbal, as vocal, and as powerful as we can. All right. And we have to push those agendas forward because I feel like you do. It's a disgrace in this country. It's disgraceful. We are a rich country. There is absolutely no excuse for this kind. And Simone will tell you, we've talked about, the cost of transitioning. We had the medical team on here from Mount Sinai, discussing like what's involved, and the big question came up, and I'm going to let Simone take it from here. How do you pay for this? Please share.
A lot of the surgeries are covered under, thanks to Obama, under Medicare.
Right.
But a lot of the surgeons will not take it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a problem right there. And 60% of trans women that are on Medicare are under the age of 65. So they don't have the means to pay for any other policy. So yes, the whole system is really, it's a mess.
Horrible.
And
it is a mess. And that's a part of why, like, again, the work that we're all doing, we have to, like Wendy said, we have to be loud and continue to advocate for things to change, right? And going back to like the youth, right? So that they don't have to, like, not that there's anything wrong with sex work, because sex work is work, but a lot of trans women resort to sex work because transitioning is so expensive, right? So if we can somehow figure out a way through policy change and through beating up these damn insurance companies and amending Obamacare somehow to include gender affirming surgeries.
Well, not only the gender affirming, facial feminization surgery, having voice surgery, voice lessons, anything to make that person, when they can walk into a place and not get, basically, let's use the word clocked as trans. They just blend into the fabric of society. Their life is so much easier. They're living the gender that they know they are.
Right. Just allow people to do that. Let them live.
The insurance companies really need to think of that, because that's really will make their lives easier. And guess what? Then they're going to have a job. They'll probably have insurance. A whole plethora of problems will fall by the wayside because they can live a life.
Right. The thing that you were saying about Daniella, this is, and I'm not judging it, but it's tragic, the amount of trans women that end up having to be sex workers. They are really it is a form of slavery. It's like, you want to be a trans girl, you're going to have to walk the streets. If you don't have the money, the family backing, if you don't have any kind of support system, that's what you're going to end up doing. And it's dangerous. Simone, Simone's great with these statistics. How many of trans women that have been murdered have been sex workers?
It's like 80% or more. 90% are women of color. It's a shame. And the statistics are so slanted against any trans person of color that it's ridiculous.
Right. And it just doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, the numbers are always higher for trans women of color, like all across the board when it comes to homelessness, medical care, employment. Like the numbers are always higher for trans women of color. But that speaks to a bigger issue in society that's beyond the trans issue. It's that's the whole bigger issue.
Oh, we will be here all night once we open up this can of worms. So I want to leave, of course, enough time, because you mentioned Botched, and I have to talk to you. As I told you earlier, that is the only show when I watch TV. I watch that TV. I don't know. I know what it is with me. I love when people can be the best they can be. And for many people, anywhere, LGBTQ, anybody, to be their best, right? They want to fix things on themselves. Like, I'm not a natural blonde. I never have been. But from the time I was little, I always saw myself as Barbie. And I was about as far away from Barbie as you could get. But you know what? It's my right to go be Barbie if I want to. And I love shows like that because they're taking people and they're improving. Well, the show Botched, obviously somebody did a bad surgery job, right? So they go on Botched and we talk about how the person's fixed and hopefully how the person's happy. Please share your story.
So I had done a show called MTV True Life prior to Botched, where I, and I like to say that life is a book, right? It's full of many chapters. So MTV True Life captured one chapter in my life where I was questioning my gender journey. And I will say that they kind of pressured me into detransitioning. So fast forward,
MTV did.
the producers, the production company, yes, they did.
I'm completely horrified.
Yeah, they pressured me into detransitioning for their story, of course, right? They took advantage of my mental state while I was vulnerable. And they manipulated me into detransitioning for their story. But that's neither here nor there. Sometimes I look at it as, I took 2 steps backwards to move forward,
Yeah.
That's fine. And so producers of Botch saw me on that and wanted me to come on and kind of tell a story. So every episode of Botch has 3 people on. 2 are they actually go through and get surgery, and 1 person is typically someone who has been on some sort of media platform before, kind of like just like it's a storyline. So I signed the contract prior to going on, knowing that I wasn't going to get surgery. Like, it was like I was going on to just kind of play a character, so to speak.
But no surgery?
No, and that's yeah.
What a waste.
So my 2 counterparts on the show, they did get surgery, but I just went on there playing a character asking for a convertible implant. And I will say that, like, the set is like, it's not necessarily really their office. It's literally a set. And like,
oh my God, Daniella, you're bursting my bubble here.
I know.
Giving me all the behind the scenes dish.
Yeah, but the doctors are amazing. There was kind of a tense moment that I don't think y'all got to see on the show because it was edited out, where there was like a joke made about like tops and bottoms with one of the doctors, and he wasn't really happy about it. So yeah, that was edited out. But other than that, the doctors are absolutely fabulous and kind and sweet, and they're amazing. They have amazing work. So
they do amazing work. And they're also, I was talking about this with someone at dinner the other night. They give what I call good TV.
Yeah.
Just the right amount of wrong, those 2, when they start to describe that, and they balance each other very, very well. But I love watching them fix up, like you've seen the ones where somebody goes in and one boob is up here and the other one's down here. It's like, how the hell did a surgeon get away with doing that to somebody? My God.
It's insane.
It's insane.
And that goes back to like, everything in life intersects, right? And I know we're running out of time. And that goes back to like insurance and good medical care, right? A lot of the times we travel out of the country and get these bot surgeries because it's cheaper from surgeons who might not necessarily be the best for us. But
just a little tip, Thailand, anyone I know who's gone to Thailand, phenomenal surgeries. So I will just say that. You have 1 minute to say whatever you want to say.
First of all, thank y'all so much for having me. I feel like at some point we need another hour to like dive deeper. We only scratched the surface. But I want to say that I have overcome so much adversity in my life, and now I'm accomplishing so much, even as a trans woman, right? So that is not a roadblock. So I hope that my journey signals to all trans women, especially LGBTQ youth, that anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Yeah.